Taehyung's fury starts to burn. I can't keep living like this, Mrs. Kim. This constant act, these empty gestures. It's eating me, Mrs. Kim, her composure slipping, retorts sharply. And what can you suggest, Taehyung? That we expose our problems to the world? Ruin our reputations, our careers? Is that what you want? He clenches his fists, the frustration giving way to anger. I want authenticity, not this play we've created. I want a marriage that's real, not one that's held together by lies and obligations. Mrs. Kim's eyes flash with resentment. Oh, really? And who do you want a real marriage with? That she from your club? Wake up, Taehyung, it's over. He doesn't need you and, more importantly, you don't need him. You think this is easy for me? We all make sacrifices for the life we want. Don't act like I'm the only one with things to lose. Mrs. Kim's anger simmers as she listens to Taehyung's words. Her eyes narrow, and a bitter laugh escapes her lips. Oh, how noble of you, darling. Wanting authenticity, wanting a real marriage. But we both know what's really behind this, don't we? Taehyung, taken aback, tries to interject, but Mrs. Kim barrels on. Don't play the victim here. It's so transparent. You're just looking for an excuse, any excuse, to run back to that boy toy of yours. Jungkook, was it? Taehyung's face tightens, his jaw clenched in frustration. This isn't just about him. It's about us, about our marriage falling apart. Mrs. Kim scoffs, the mockery in her voice cutting through the tension. Oh, please, Taehyung. Spare me the theatrics. You're so desperate to escape this life that you're willing to throw everything away for a fling with that pathetic boy. Her words hang in the air, a cruel echo of the resentment that has festered between them. The truth, however painful, lingers in the silence that follows, leaving Taehyung to grapple with the weight of his choices and the unraveling threads of a marriage that may be beyond repair. Taehyung's frustration ignites into anger, his eyes flashing with intensity. You know nothing about him or me. This is about our marriage, not Jungkook. Mrs. Kim smirks, a cold glint in her eyes. Spare me your righteous indignation. You've been pining after him since the beginning, and now you conveniently have an excuse to play the victim and run back to your little affair. Jungkook is not just some affair. And her problems go beyond him. Mrs. Kim leans in, her voice dripping with disdain. You're so blind, Taehyung. He's a distraction, a little fantasy. You think he's your escape from this life? Newsflash, he'll never be more than a pretty face for your midlife crisis. The car ride becomes a battleground of bitter exchanges. Mrs. Kim continues her assault on Taehyung's character, aiming to wound him where it hurts the most. Do you honestly believe he'll stick around when the novelty wears off? When he realizes the mess he's getting himself into with the married man? You're delusional if you think he'll be your happily ever after. Taehyung clenches his jaw. You don't understand a damn thing about him. Jungkook is not some temporary escape for me. He's been the only person who's seen me for who I am, not the persona I put on for the world. Mrs. Kim scoffs. And what? You're planning to ride off into the sunset with him? Build a life together while I play the betrayed wife. The tension in the car reaches its peak as Taehyung navigates through the winding roads. The flickering streetlights cast intermittent shadows, mirroring the confusion within. The air thickens. Taehyung's voice rises, fueled by frustration. I don't know what you want from me, Mrs. Kim, but I can't keep living a lie. Jungkook means something to me, And I can't just abandon that because it's inconvenient for you. Mrs. Kim's retort is cold and cutting. Inconvenient? You've made our entire marriage inconvenient with your reckless desires. You're just infatuated with him because he's a distraction from your own dissatisfaction with reality. This is pathetic. Taehyung. He glares at her with anger. You have no right to belittle what I feel. This is my life, and I won't let you dictate it any longer. Mrs. Kim smirks, the bitterness in her tone palpable. Your life? Your choices have consequences, Taehyung. And you'll find that chasing after that boy will cost you more than you're willing to pay. The tension in the car is suffocating. Each word exchanged another blow in the battle between them. Mrs. Kim leans in, her eyes narrowed with a malicious glint. You really think he wants you? A wealthy man like you, but so broken and tainted? He's just using you for a bit of fun and money, and you're too blinded by a crisis to see it. You know nothing about us. Mrs. Kim scoffs, dismissive. And how long do you think that'll last? Until he finds someone younger, richer, more exciting? Face it, Taehyung, you're just a chapter in his book. But now you what? You're sacrificing your entire life for him. The sting of the words cuts deep, but Taehyung refuses to show weakness. I won't let you manipulate me. My relationship with Jungkook is my business, and I won't let you poison it with your insecurities. Mrs. Kim smirks, a cruel satisfaction in her eyes. Insecurities? No, Taehyung, these are facts. Your little fling with him will be the downfall of everything you've built. And when it all comes crashing down, don't expect me to be there to pick up the pieces. Taehyung's grip on the steering wheel bordering on painful. The weight of Mrs. Kim's words presses on him, but he refuses to let her see the cracks forming in his resolve. Enough, Mrs. Kim. Just enough. She leans back, a malicious grin on her face. Why, Taehyung? Can't handle the truth? Your precious little boy won't save you from the mess you're creating. But go ahead, keep playing the victim. It's pathetic. His knuckles turn white as he fights to keep his temper in check. You have no idea what you're talking about. Jungkook is not the cause of our problems. He's not some pawn in your little game. Mrs. Kim laughs, a sharp, biting sound. Oh, Taehyung, you're so delusional. Jungkook is just using you for your money. Once he's had his fun, he'll move on, leaving you with nothing. Is that really the future you want? He looks at Mrs. Kim with a steely gaze. You know nothing. You're only trying to create chaos because you can't stand to see me happy. Mrs. Kim shrugs dismissively. Happy? Is that what you call it? You're blinded by infatuation, Taehyung. Jungkook is a little master manipulator, and you're dancing to his tune without even realizing it. Taehyung takes a deep breath, trying to maintain control. Jungkook is not manipulating me. You're the one who's trying to poison everything. What's your problem, Mrs. Kim? Why can't you just let me live my life? Mrs. Kim scoffs. Live your life, huh? Taehyung, you're on a path to destruction, and Jungkook is leading the way. Wake up. He's using you, and you're too blinded by your emotions to see it. I'm just trying to save you from a disaster. Taehyung's voice rises, frustration evident. Save me? You're the one causing the disaster. You can't stand the fact that I found happiness, so you're hell-bent on tearing it apart. Well, it's not going to work. Mrs. Kim leans in, her eyes narrowing. Happiness? What happiness, Taehyung? This is just a fantasy you've concocted to escape the reality of your crumbling life. Jungkook is the problem, And until you realize that, you're just digging your own grave. Taehyung grips the steering wheel even tighter, his patience wearing thin. Jungkook is not the problem, you are. I don't know what your issue is with him, but I won't let you poison my relationship. Stay out of my life, Mrs. Kim. Mrs. Kim smirks, enjoying the turmoil she's causing. Oh no, I'm not going anywhere, darling. I care about our family, and I won't stand by while you ruin everything. You'll thank me when you finally open your eyes and see Jungkook for who he truly is. Taehyung shakes his head, his anger escalating. I don't need your so-called protection. If you cared about me, you'd respect my choices. Jungkook is not some villain in your twisted narrative. We're done here. Mrs. Kim leans back, a wicked satisfaction in her eyes. Fine, Taehyung. Enjoy a little fairy tale while it lasts. When it all falls apart, don't say I didn't warn you. She smirks one last time before turning away, leaving Taehyung seething with frustration and resentment.